All right. I'm not even going to gavel. Welcome, everybody, to the Lake Bluff School District 65 Board of Education Committee of the Whole meeting for February 11th, 2020. Leanne, will you act as our Secretary Pro Tem?
Gladly.
All right, so could you please take the roll?
Duran.
Present.
Hill.
Present.
Berry.
Present.
Charlo present. Gottschall absent. Hague absent. Rosen.
Present.
All right, we got a quorum. We're going to begin, and we will dive right in. If you guys will all stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks. Now's our time for public comment. If anybody would like to address the board, please feel free to do so. Not seeing any. We offer this opportunity for members of the board to suggest either a brief discussion item for tonight, that's something that's not on the agenda, or to offer an agenda item for a future meeting. Does anybody have anything they want to bring up? I have one, and I'm going to bring this up continuously for the next 6 months. Is, even though it's going to seem like it's a really long time away, the elections for 2021 are coming up faster than people think. Paperwork for people in the community who might be interested in running for the school board will be due to the county
In December.
in December, and there's going to be the Vote Lake Bluff Caucus meetings sometime around that time as well. So I encourage anybody in the community who has ever thought about or given consideration, or even if you haven't thought about it, might want to think about it, running for board, to reach out to myself or anybody else on the board if you can get some background and fill you in on what it's about and how it works. We'd love to talk to you, but hopefully people will begin to think about that. And that's all I had. Anybody else? All right, so we're going to dive right into presentations, and we have some guests to talk about Quest Food Service, right?
Yes, come on up and take a stand at the podium. And then if you guys could introduce yourself, these are our representatives from Quest that are gonna go through their survey information and what they've been doing. They've got about a 10-minute presentation, and then they're gonna be open for questions. So, go for it.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Cohen. I'm the district manager with Quest.
Hi, I'm Nick Sicaro. I'm the president at Quest. Relatively new Lake Bluff community members as well. My wife and son and I moved up here on Halloween, and we got a little guy in 5th grade at the elementary school, and having a fantastic experience there so far, so thank you. Yeah, we wanted to take a chance to give you a little bit of an overview of our first semester. I'll say in a nutshell, we got a lot of work to do. If you guys don't know much about Quest, I'll jump to this one here. So we're a privately held, locally owned company. We have about 85 school partners in and around Chicagoland. We go as far north as Gurnee. We've got Warren Township High Schools up there. We've been at Lake Forest 67 for about 12 years. Work with Lake Forest High School. We're at Highland Park in Deerfield High Schools, New Trier. We go out to Barrington, down to Minooka, Batavia, Joliet, and then several accounts down in the city as well, including schools like Francis Parker, British International School, et cetera. We've got a pretty strong presence here in the education space here in Chicagoland. Almost all our K-12 partners. This is the kind of place that we like to work, and we think we can add value. And candidly speaking, we have not hit the ground running this first semester. We've had some successes, but I think we've got a lot of room to grow. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what we've learned from the survey and what we've tried to put in place here over the last 4 to 6 weeks. 4 to 6 weeks, we've seen some immediate improvement in January in terms of sales and participation, and hopefully that's a good indicator of where things are headed. So for the fall of 19, obviously we're excited to have the opportunity for a new partnership between Lake Forest and here at Lake Bluff. We implemented, and again, we've been at Lake Forest, I think, since 2007, so they've been a long-time partner of ours. We've done some work with the district over the years, supporting some free and reduced lunches for free eligible students, but we were very excited to have the opportunity to do a full-blown partnership here this school year. We started the implementation of what's called Meal Planner, so we are rolling out a new nutrition management platform as a company. And Meal Planner gives parents access to not just menus at the locations we're serving, but also all of the nutritional information for those menus. And we picked Lake Bluff as one of the 12 pilot sites that we have at Quest to roll that out, so we've been excited to pilot that here. We introduced compostable disposables this year at Lake Bluff as well, which we know is an important request to the community. We don't do that at all of our locations, but the locations that want to do that, we certainly are excited and happy to do that. We have seen in January some strong growth. We're up about 9% in sales over what our average daily sales were from August through December.
Here in Lake Bluff or?
At Lake Bluff, yes, sir. And so we think that's really kind of a good indication that some of the steps we're making to try to put some things in place to respond to some of the community feedback from the survey is starting to take hold. But again, we feel like we've got a ways to grow there. And then our overall financial projection for the district for the first half of the school year is pretty much on target with what we had originally budgeted or projected. I would say that the sales certainly haven't been where we'd like for them to be, but I think we've done a decent job of managing expenses to keep them in line. But we're excited to see that sales growth in January and hope to see it continue moving forward. This is a little bit of a screenshot. These are the 3 different images of what a parent would see. I don't know if any of you folks use this on Meal Planner, but you can see in the middle screenshot there, and then the one to the right, the middle screenshot has all of the nutritional information for a particular menu item, and then on the right, it's got all of the individual ingredients that actually go into that product. So we'll be rolling out some additional visibility as it relates to allergens and things of that nature in the upcoming months. Which will be a nice addition here, but hopefully, again, some great visibility for parents of students who have dietary restrictions, allergy concerns, all of those sorts of things to be able to make informed decisions about what makes sense for them to eat, not eat, et cetera. So the survey that we did for the fall, where could we improve? Pretty much everywhere. So food quality, variety, the length of time it takes students to get through the line. We've heard some concerns about ordering timelines and how far in advance parents have to place orders. I know my wife has expressed frustrations about that from time to time too with our son, and so we've got some changes that we'll be rolling out here in the next couple of months on ordering timeline as well. One of the things that's always a little bit interesting when we start, even at places where we pre-order, is inevitably we run into stumbling blocks with making sure that we've got the right amount of food for every student. We have students who might forget to bring lunch, students who maybe have a spill, students who are expressing to us that they're sure their parents ordered, but we don't have record of it in the system. And so just making sure that we've got not just enough food, but enough of every option to make sure that every student is covered with exactly what they want is something that always takes us a little bit of time to work through and make sure that we've got dialed in. And then we've made some sort of immediate steps here just to make sure that we're really merchandising things right and it looks appealing to students when they're going through the line, and that we're also doing some things to kind of step up the marketing of the program, remind parents of ordering timelines, all those kinds of things. So these are some of the things that we heard about in terms of where we can grow and improve for the student experience and the parent experience. And I'm going to let Rebecca talk a little bit more about some of the things that we have already put in place and some of the things we will be putting in place here in the upcoming weeks and months to respond to that survey data.
So I'm new to this district. I took over in January. So some things we've implemented since after winter break, including some scratch items. For example, we had spaghetti and meatballs, and our meatballs were grass-fed, natural, homemade meatballs, 100% beef. I'm working on the March menu now and adding more vegetarian items, gluten-friendly items, and healthier options. Something that's more appealing for the eye as well. So different color, adding a hot vegetable, whether it be broccoli or green beans, adding less breaded chicken items, more whole meats, and different ethnic items as well. Grab and go as well, having different salmon, more for the middle school than the elementary school, but having a variety of sandwiches and salads, not just cookies and bagels, but adding more, because if the kids don't want to wait in line or they don't like the hot option, there's always those grab and go options for the supplement if the food isn't enough, or just for your full meal. Line speed is something we really worked on at the elementary school especially. So teaching the server, not plating too far in advance because that's when the food gets cold. But, just the right amount of time and maybe doing 20 at a time. And then as you're passing them out, you can do a few more because temperature is probably more important than getting the line through because of quality and, of course, safety. So we've kind of balanced that happy medium between getting the food out to them quickly, but also keeping it hot because it all kind of plays together. We reorganized the line as well. So instead of having the milk over here and the food and the salad bar all here, we kind of made it one long streamlined where you can just get your food, then your milk, then your condiments, and your silverware, et cetera, and your fruit and veggie bar. So that's what we mean by like rolled out new, more efficient serving model in January, just to make it easier for the kids so they don't have to go over here if they're sitting over here, and give them more time to eat, which is the ultimate goal. Ordering timelines. So right now it is at a week, which candidly that is a long time. Typically we see 3 days. So our goal is by after spring break, basically by April 1st, we're going to lower that lead time to 3 days. So that means like for Friday you can order for Monday, etc. So I think that'll give parents, plus I've had parents email me and say, oh, I forgot to order, can you place an order for me this morning? Absolutely. I'm sending out weekly reminders to remind parents to order and kind of doing some marketing as I'm sending out those reminders. So talking about our food philosophy or our menu for next month, or, I'm working on new March menu items. Do you have any feedback? And I get at least 2 to 3 emails back from every week from those emails, with the dialogue, expressing some of their concerns, getting some feedback on what menu items their kids would like to see next week or next month. So that's been really helpful to kind of market the program and get that feedback, especially being new to the district. Food quantity, adding, as we call padding, to the forecast, so adding more meals to make sure that everybody's getting fed. And if we have leftovers, we don't want a lot of leftovers, but kids forget their lunch, like Nick was saying. So just adding more food so we don't run out. And making sure the 2 schools are talking to each other. So if the middle school has 20 portions left and the elementary school, might be running short, they can call and the driver will take some over. We're also setting aside food for the last lunch because the 5th graders, the last lunch tends to get, the shaft, for lack of a better word, but so kind of setting that food aside ahead of time at the beginning of the lunch to make sure we have enough for the last lunch, including the fruit and veggie bar. So marketing and merchandising, we added a new grab-and-go cooler, no cost to the district at the middle school, just to have a better presentation, better quality, better temperature of the food for the cold items. I borrowed some small wares from another account at no expense to the district, just to kind of help merchandise and market the program, more modernize. And then, like I said, the weekly email ordering reminders have really helped market the program and obtain that feedback. The other thing I do.
I just have a quick question before
Yes.
you go further. I don't obviously have kids at the school any longer. How do they pay for this? They pay for per meal or for the year, or how does that work?
So for the elementary school, they pre-order their meals. So they could do a week at a time, they could do a month at a time, they could do, has whatever time frame that they want. And they click on the menu option that they want, and it gets into their cart. They check out, and they pay for it via credit card.
Okay,
So they're paying for what they order.
And if they're sick that day and they've already paid for it in advance, how does that work?
So what is our sick policy here?
Jay,
2 days notice, yeah.
And are there any deals if you buy for a week in advance or a month in
No.
advance? No,
No deals.
No bulk purchasing.
No bulk, yeah.
incentive.
Yeah, they don't have to worry about it for a month. They know their kids are going to get fed. And then the middle school is, they take whatever they want, that they see there, whether it's the hot option, just a beverage, or a grab-and-go option, and then they pay at a register using their ID. So it's a declining balance that the parents put money on.
I'd just like to say I really appreciate the reminder emails.
Oh.
I noticed them and was very happy.
Good.
So thank you.
Good.
And I got a couple things too. So as a parent of 2 kids at LBES, I've done lunch duty many times this year and in previous years, just to get into the school. And I guess the biggest question I have about this has probably been one of the single biggest things I've had parents come talk to me about, and I keep trying to send them to you or to you. But I guess the biggest thing, you've clearly done this in lots of other schools and districts. I mean, what's been the barrier to success here? Why has it been such a struggle here when you've clearly got experience?
Sure. So thanks for the question. I want to try to be candid, I guess, in your response, and also want to be careful of not making it sound like we're making excuses here, if that makes sense. We have had a bigger challenge with staffing at the Lake Forest K-8 and high school buildings than any other part of our entire organization that we serve at. We have been down 4 to 6 individuals all year, which is quite a lot for a staff of 12 to 15 folks. And it has caused a lot of strain in terms of having our management team really involved in the weeds and not overseeing and making sure that we're managing the program well. It's caused us challenges at 67 this year, candidly. Some things that we've not seen in the 12 plus years that we have been there. We have had managers from a variety of counts supporting 67. We've had folks from our home office that have been up there supporting 67. We've had job fairs, referral bonuses, return bonuses. We've been throwing anything and everything we can at it to try to get folks in, and it has been very, very challenging. We also made a change with our on-site manager at the end of the first semester, someone who had been at the district for 13 years, and brought a new manager on board. So I guess at the end of the day, we've not done our job, I don't think, from a personnel standpoint of making sure that we've got the right team in place to execute for that district or for the district here. We've made some changes. We've hired, 6 folks, I think, 5 or 6 folks in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So we're finally making some headway there, and we're excited about what lies ahead, but we have really, really struggled from a staffing standpoint there, and I think you guys have felt the brunt of it in the first year here, unfortunately.
Thank you.
Is the prep gets done at 67?
Correct.
So is that an unusual thing? Is prep one school delivered to another, or is that common in other places?
We
It's
probably,
Satellites.
yeah, we probably have, I don't know, 12 to 15 partnerships where we do that at. And then we have other schools where even within the same district, some schools might not have adequate prep facilities for us to do all the production at every site. So like even at 67, we prepare food at Deer Path Middle School and are taking it to some of the other elementary schools because they don't have the full scale either storage or production capacity. We do that at Orland 135, Tinley 146. We do it out of several, Glenbrook North. We serve Lincolnshire and 3 other private schools there. So we have quite a bit of experience in doing the satellite model, and I think that was part of what I don't want to speak for the district staff here, but I think that was part of what provided some confidence that it wasn't our first experience doing that kind of satellite service. And we're fortunate enough that we're so close. I mean, some of our satellites can be 30 and 40 minutes away. That presents even greater challenges from a continuity, ordering, all of those kinds of things standpoint. So I don't know. There's not really an excuse, I guess, the lack of, to be completely candid, I mean, not having the staff in place, the right team in place to execute on programs like this is something that we take really seriously, and we don't think it's okay. So.
Well, thank you for that. I have one more thing. It's great that you did the parent survey. I was slightly disappointed with the level of data we got back. Just some bullet points. It doesn't really tell us much. I'd be interested to know if it exists. And I'm sorry I didn't ask this in advance. I was on the road today. But would be interested to know kind of what level of those concerns were higher than others, because I know there's my wife and I both did the survey. I know there were surveys that were done. And kind of follow up to that, I don't know if you've done this, maybe I missed it, maybe it's happened, but to talk to the lunch monitors, because I know that lunch monitors at the buildings have had concerns, and they're there every day, they see stuff, so it's great to do a parent survey, but getting information from people that are there that might actually have some good suggestions, or even the maintenance staff that's there, if that hasn't happened, it might be something worthwhile.
We'll put that on the list to do right away. Thank you.
Great.
That's good feedback. One of the other things that we like to do a lot is having food committees with the students where we get to sit down and get student feedback as well. And ideally, if we can keep the same or kind of a core group of students engaged throughout their time at the school, so that we don't just have a rotating group of students every year, that's great. Having that qualitative time with the students where we get to help sample some new items, et cetera, is a great way to learn from the students what kinds of things they're looking for as well. So appreciate the lunch monitor comment, though. That's not something that often comes up when we're talking about feedback sources. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Sure.
I hope that one of the things the district will find with us is when we're not firing on all cylinders, we're not going to shy away from it. We're not going to make excuses for it. We just want to fix it. And I'm excited about Rebecca's presence here. Rebecca started with us as our general manager at New Trier and has moved up and oversees a lot of our partnerships here on the North Shore. She is someone who takes immediate action with this stuff, as hopefully some of these things are showing. But we know we've got work to do, and we just got to keep pushing ahead here. So we'll continue to get some other points of feedback. The lunchroom monitor is a great point, food committees, et cetera. I guess financially, we've just got a couple of slides here. I don't want to take up too much time. I'm sorry. The financial performance, we are relatively on target with where we thought the first year of the program would be. With the overall bottom line, again, sales are certainly lagging behind, but we think we've done a decent job of managing expenses in other categories to make up for it so that we're not causing a greater burden to the district than what had been anticipated. So we've got the sales and then just the major categories: food, labor, non-food expenses. So that'd be things like supplies, the disposables that the students eat off of, et cetera. There are some funds that go back to 67 for additional utility costs, equipment wear and tear, some of those kinds of things for the additional production capacity there, and then of course our fee. Some of the variances there, and we had shared with the district at the start that there would be some initial investment required for equipment, serving equipment and things of that nature. Like over at the elementary school, for example, they were serving primarily off of like a table, like an 8-foot table, and so we need to have equipment for serving hot food to the students and those types of things. And then we, of course, are still making sure that the free eligible students are fed, so we've got just a breakout of the free eligible students there. We're looking forward to the March menu. So one of the things that's a little challenging for us with this pre-order system is that we get the survey data in June or in December, early January. We've already got the February menu loaded. And so if we go in and start making changes to the menu, it wipes out all of the orders that are already in for February. So we're a little bit behind in terms of how quickly we can make substantial changes to the menu. We can still work on food quality and the temperature and the preparation of the menu items that are already there. But introducing new items and changing up variety and some of those kinds of things, it's kind of a 2-month lag because we have to wait until we don't have menus that are published. We've made that mistake a few times of going in and changing menus that are already published, and then everything gets wiped out and we sort of start all over again. So I guess just in closing, we know there's opportunity for improvement. We are trying to respond as urgently as we possibly can. We're excited about the new team that we have managing the program here, managing our partnership down the street as well. Excited to see the sales moving in a good direction for January, and we know we've got some work ahead of us yet. And I guess we're here for the long haul. We want to keep chipping away at it and trying to do a better and better job and learning from where we've made some mistakes and also capitalizing on some things that are going well. Anecdotal feedback. I mean, my son being a 5th grader, we were down at Highland Park before, where they were bringing in PTO lunches every day, and just anecdotally, he loves having access to the fresh fruit and vegetable bar every day. That's not something he had access to before. So those are things that we want to continue to build upon and try to make sure that the District 65 community feels as positively about us as a lot of our other partners do.
Just one other question.
Yes, sir.
So the numbers you showed, the P&L numbers, those are for our district?
Yes, sir.
So 40K down in sales.
Mm-hmm.
What's the direct result of that, and how do you plan to sort of offset that in the future? That's a big number.
It is a big number.
Really off of where you expected to
For
be.
sure. So I think how we try to offset that is, one, making sure that we're managing expenses accordingly so that we're not still spending the same amount of food and labor that we would if sales were where we had projected they would be, so that we're digging an even bigger hole for the district. I mean,
These are sales, have nothing to do with.
I understand that. So this is how we try to offset it, right? Is understanding what's causing sales to be down and how we take immediate action to try to move in the right direction.
Marketing to the parents, is that a factor?
That's part of it, which is why we're doing the weekly reminders as an example. But even if we're marketing it well, if students don't feel like they're having great experiences, we're just marketing something that people aren't excited about. So we've got to deliver on the experience, and then we've got to make sure that we're continuing to market and push it.
I think the couple things that I would tell you guys is, probably no surprise to you as parents, sometimes I find that the kids have different experiences than the parents think they're having. So it's important to talk to the kids too. The little ones also have stories that they can tell. I really appreciated when you came in and talked to the PTO. That went a long way. And I think more of those visits, they're gonna be very honest with you. It's a great representation of our parent body. And then they can go out and tell people, hey, they've listened to us, this is what we shared. I think that was really important. And I would also suggest that you probably keep in contact with the principals a little bit more than you do. When we meet as an admin team and we hear things that, for instance, I know that there was an issue with the snacks at both buildings. Those are big issues, because some of our kids come to school and they don't have food in their
Sure.
homes. So keeping track with the principals and that open line. Jay does a great job of overseeing everything, but the principals are there every day and they can offer insight too. I really think it's important that you've done a lot of things that you've recognized. You've recognized that some of the parents are not real happy right now. And I think you're on the right road to bringing that all back. And I appreciate that, so.
Thank you. And to your point, Rebecca and I were just talking about the principals and the snack issue, so you're spot on. I mean, and we, Quest, are just gonna cover that for the rest of the year as like, just a gesture that we wanna
I think
wanna
it's
make
really
this right.
important gesture.
But you're absolutely spot on. These are the last things in the world that busy administrators need to be worrying about. It's embarrassing, to be candid, so.
It's too
Thank
bad
you.
you can't go back when I went to school 60, 70 years ago and had my experience in the cafeteria. A little different than this.
You want them to recreate that?
I'd like to just thank Nick and Rebecca for coming tonight.
I
and
would too.
Presenting, and also just to say I've noticed a big change in service and attention since January, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks, Jay.
I've gotten many reports at home that the line is moving a lot faster.
Good.
So.
Good,
Elementary school?
Elementary school, yeah.
good.
And I think, and financially, this is, because our free and reduced population is larger and growing, this is a much more efficient way to address that population. So it looks like we're 35,000 as a loss, but that includes feeding all of the free kids, which costs, we were paying retail prices before to feed them and spending $50,000 a year. So
Yeah.
this is, and they're getting better and healthier.
They're getting better quality food, more nutritious.
Yeah, and just an important note on that point, Jay, when we look at the sales, I just want to make sure everyone's aware, like, we showed the cost of the actual cost of the free meals, but there's no revenue running through the system for the free meals. So when we talk about the retail value or the cost or whatever, none of that is representative in the sales. That's only represented in the food cost, the actual cost for feeding those students. So I want to make sure we're clear on that. It's a good differentiator. Thank you, or point to remember.
Well, thank you very much
Yeah,
for coming.
thank
We
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're moving on to, my screen doesn't blank.
And what I would tell you is with items B, C, and D, Kevin and Jay are gonna present together, and really, what's gonna happen is the tech personnel update is gonna be in both the licensed staffing and the non-licensed, so I'm turning it over to you guys to cover the next 3 agenda items. Yes.
Very official.
Actually, if we could just go to the licensed staffing plan, that would be really helpful. So, in the licensed staffing plan, proposal for this coming year, which we are presenting this evening as information only, and then it will be for your approval at the February 28th board meeting? February 25th board meeting. We are proposing a couple of different things. So first of all, at Lake Bluff Elementary School, you will recall, if you were on the board at that time, that we increased FTE in the pre-K program due to a significant increase in demand. So we added a class at that time, a couple of years ago, that class is now becoming kindergartners this next year, and we don't anticipate the need to continue that second pre-K program class. So we're recommending a decrease of 0.5 FTE overall at LBES. At Lake Bluff Middle School, as our students who are English learners are aging up through the system, we are seeing a greater need for a couple of different things. So first of all, we need an English learner teacher who is also Spanish speaking. We are needing English learner support all throughout the day and all throughout the week. And currently that's not occurring, and it is something that's really significant, and it's something that came out last year in our scores, and certainly is impacting us all throughout the day. And our teachers, as they have talked with us about staffing and our needs for the coming year, this is something that we've heard loud and clear. And so we're recommending an increase, slight increase of 0.2 FTE in the licensed staffing there. In terms of there are some services that we purchase from our special education cooperative. And so while we've not sort of made this abundantly clear, because it just comes through the special education cooperative and there are services that we purchase every year, we wanted to just go on record and make sure that everybody was on the same page about this. So first of all, this year we are currently purchasing 0.2 FTE of school psychologist time to help cover additional needs at the elementary school in terms of school psychologists. So that's not included in the district FTE overall, but we pay a direct price for that. And so that's covered at cost. We are recommending that we increase that to 0.3 FTE, just because of the fact that we have a good school psychologist at the elementary school, and the needs are still really great. So that's the first part. The second.
Can I just add
Sure.
one thing? It's important to note when we buy services through the cooperative, it allows us the freedom of, if things change during the course of the next year, you just don't purchase the service again.
Yep.
By not having them on our staff, it not only doesn't reflect on our FTE, but we don't have to terminate that person. There's a lot involved with it. Purchasing the service from the co-op is really what the co-op is all about. So, and then I'll turn
Correct.
it back
So
over to you.
in January, by the end of January of 2021, the district will be required to give notice to the cooperative about what services we're going to purchase for the next school year. So we just gave notice about the services that we plan to give for this next year, pending the board approval. The other piece that we actually purchase now, and we have purchased for several years, is 0.1 FTE of behavior support, and that is a person who comes in and actually works in both schools, and they do some behavior coaching. And this year they have provided extensive professional development to both of our teams at the elementary and middle school about how to conduct functional behavior analysis, what that should look like. That was something that last year both of our teams in their professional development survey said that they needed more support in, and so we actually added that as something that was going on here. And so we're asking to continue there. The final thing is that we, as somebody who gets to speak about this across the country and across the state and talk with my colleagues often about this, I can tell you that we are unfortunately not alone or isolated in the fact that we're in the midst of probably the worst major mental health crisis of our time. And we're feeling the effects in our schools. Our teams are really overloaded, and we see it every day. And because of that, And that's not to say that we don't have work to do in other spaces in our school, because we do. And there are some, and we're already addressing those things. But because of that, and because of what Jean talked about earlier, about the way that we purchase services and what it allows us to do through the cooperative, what we're asking for there through the cooperative is an additional 0.5 FTE of school psychologist, which
Or
actually.
social worker, either one.
Yep, it'll more than likely be a school psychologist, so that it's actually one person, so that it's really a 0.8 that we're purchasing, and allows us to be a bit more flexible in who is hired.
Right.
It's hard to find a half-time school social worker. Even a 0.8 school psychologist is asking a little bit much of them. And so the collaborative purchase services overall, in terms of school psychologist, is 0.8, and then 0.1 in the behavior coaching.
I think what I want to share with all of you, and I've shared this with Lisa, this gives the middle school the support they need. It also allows a little bit of data collection next year. You could keep purchasing 0.5 or keep purchasing social work / psychologists through the co-op, or if it becomes a bigger issue, you could always add a social worker to either building. But by doing this, first of all, we have to do it. The needs are too great. As Kevin addressed, it's become a crisis. And this way we get the support, and it still allows Lisa some flexibility in the following year on staffing.
Well, I'm really glad to hear that there's going to be extra support at the middle school, especially given what we've seen in IOS data, given what we know is happening just in the building in general. And I know we're not alone in that, but still, I'm glad we're being proactive. Just so I understand, the 0.8 FTE, the goal for that as a psychologist, and that makes sense why I'd be a psychologist, not social worker. The idea is that would be one person.
That's what we're going to try. That's what Kevin's ordering.
Okay, this is like a 0.5 for one thing and 0.3 for another thing. Would that 0.8 be at the middle school, or would that be 0.5 at the middle school, 0.3 at the elementary school, or how does that break
It
down?
would be 0.3 at the elementary school and
Okay.
0.5 at the middle school.
Got it.
And
Okay.
it may not be one person, and, so that's one of the downsides of staffing through the cooperative, is
Right.
that we don't have the ability to sort of say, it could be literally 5 people. It could be parts of different people's jobs that we are getting the other pieces of that. And that's not ideal, and they recognize that, and they understand that, but that's part of the staffing of it.
And we have we meaning you, administration has no ability to influence that at all. I'm just trying to learn
We
how that works.
try our best. For instance, the non-negotiable for me was for the 0.5 at middle, I really want that person here every day. I don't want it to be one day a week, because that to me means that that child can only have issues on Mondays when that person is there.
Right.
We really need to have someone that's in our buildings every day. So Kevin and I would prefer it's a 0.8 person that's in our district, but it just depends on, NSSCD has to look at all the districts they have and figure out how they're gonna staff.
Yeah, as somebody who spends a lot of time at NSSCD on various, their board and their finance committee, I hear constantly that they have a struggle, and that they focus on this is a big part of their business, is providing these services and bodies struggling to fill these positions. There's huge demand for all those kinds of services and all those professions, and they struggle. And one of the realities, unfortunately, is also we're competing against some really heavy users to get these bodies. Some of the bigger districts have much, much bigger expenses and much greater demands with the co-op than we do.
And I guess the follow-up question I would have then is, let's say there's a 0.8 or 2, 1.5, 1.3, whatever, however that math breaks down, and for some reason, some portion of that's not working into next year. Do you have the opportunity to re-explore that with NSSCD?
Yes.
At the end of the year. I mean,
Only
like,
at the end of
And-
the year?
Yeah.
But
Okay.
actually during the year too, if we're having a problem with a staff
Yeah.
member,
yeah,
we can, it's just like their work for us. We work with NSSCD to evaluate,
Okay.
handle personnel issues, but the bottom line is they're the hiring agency. And we can't let them go unless it's one of those cases that we
Right,
would have to let them go with us too. So there is some flexibility with the co-op, but really they take on this person for us. And we're committed. So like if we change our mind all of a sudden, June 1st, we're down for 0.8.
Yep.
That's what we're paying for next year.
You know, I have a question. At .8, you start to think, well, gee, that's pretty close to 1. So, and there's some big advantages if you go to 1. So I don't know, have we ruled that out only because of the question of not wanting to increase FTE?
Well, this doesn't have anything to do with FTE,
I
so.
understand. Well, but then if you're at 1, then then maybe you are hiring someone. I don't know. I see advantages to having somebody working at the district full-time. And when you get to these questions of, 0.3,
I think what we obviously work on the fact that we get what we need to get because everything's expensive.
right.
So, and I really, like I said, I think this is still the best way, because if this works and we really see good data and the staff feels like this has really helped them, then Lisa may come back to you next year and say, we need to add a social worker or a psych at the middle school. And nobody can fault anybody because we will have already tried it in this way. But unlike other staffing decisions, this will have to be made next January, because the three of us meet with NSSED, and that's where we have to obligate to the following year. We have not talked about doing a 1.0 because we didn't feel that we always need more help, but we didn't feel that we needed to get that this year.
To add to that, I mean, it feels like we could hire 10 more staff members,
That's where we're at with that.
and,
I get that, too.
yeah,
But it just seems like, I don't know. I'm sure you've given it really
close enough, but
good,
yes, yeah. right.
care and consideration. I just, from the outside looking at it, it looked like, well, there's probably some advantages to having a whole person.
One
and,
person.
Right.
we're pretty close.
So that's the
So-
difference of about $25,000.
Yeah.
So, and we are still not sure about where we're going to be in terms of teaching assistant support. So like those sorts of budget pieces have not come together yet.
Yeah.
And so as we start to solidify these pieces and those other pieces, that may be a consideration that, we add on there.
I would also tell you the co-op may come back to us.
Yeah, NSSED could come back to us in August and say, we haven't been able to identify a .8 person. And so would you be willing to accept and pay for only a full-time person?
Well, that
That's
is a
also
distinct
a possible
possibility.
consideration.
Yeah, and I appreciate we're trying to be, conservative with the dollars. That's very important. But understanding what you're saying too, we could add 10 and probably still not cover everything.
It really is become an issue, and I think that this will give all of you as a board next year a little bit more ability to make a decision if you do need an additional person.
And I'm going to claim rookie ignorance for a minute, because this is the first time I've ever been through on the board through staffing. But can you just explain the difference between doing FTE, 0.8 FTE or 1.0 FTE through an SSED versus just hiring an FTE, why that matters?
It matters a lot because, number one, our FTE, because we're so small, really dictates our cost per pupil. And
Which
this
is reported
communi-
publicly.
Which is a public number, and it's monitored closely. And it's very misunderstood. When you look at numbers, you look at enrollment numbers, even people my age, I'm starting to feel old. People my age will say, well, I don't understand why why you have to have all these people. I used to have 45 kids in my PE class. Why do you have to have all these staff members? So they don't have all the background and the context, and we are really cognizant of being transparent to the community and really watching that number. The other piece, though, is when there are staff member, we're in charge of evaluations for them. If we're not going to have them back, we have to let them go. And so when you look at a staff member, you think it's going to be better for them through NSSED. If we decided we didn't need them, they will have any other district that they could place that person in, and then we're not losing a good person.
Okay, I think that helps me understand, although I think that last point is probably not, I think that's probably wouldn't happen here, given that we could use 10 more people. So the primary motivation to do, and I'm not saying I'm just trying to understand, the primary motivation between doing it through NSSED and purchase services as opposed to hiring a full-time staff really is about that FTE number, is about, because.
I'd say the prime thing right now is we don't, there's such a crisis right now that we don't know if this is gonna rectify itself in a year. Adding a staff member is a big deal here. It really should be a big deal everywhere. It gives us flexibility. It's why we pay co-op fees.
And we have new administration starting next year who might have different perspectives on this.
Sure.
So this gives Dr. Leali the chance to respond without paying the price for something we acted on now that maybe was premature.
Yep.
Okay.
There are also some things that we need to work on internally.
Right.
In putting some other systems into place to make sure that the people that we do bring in from NSSED are going to be able to be supported and set up for success, and that our current staff are set up for success, that we have been working on for a while and will continue to work on.
Great, well, thank you for clarifying that.
Not a problem.
I'm really happy that there's gonna be some extra support. I would echo Leanne's comments on if we're at 0.8, why can't we just get to 1.0 or whatever, but I think at least some level of extra support is a really good thing, and I think our students will benefit for sure.
Yeah,
good
and I
step.
didn't mean that as a criticism of.
No.
I'm just noticing.
We didn't take it.
No.
We did not take it as such. I think that it's also important to point out and draw the distinction that, and we have talked about this as a team internally and externally, that the schools can't be the end-all be-all for our communities. We really need to rely on community support services, and unfortunately, those were decimated a couple years ago in a significant budget crisis as well, and we're still rebuilding those, but that's another reason why we should only be doing this for a year with temporary staffing, to see really where those community support services are in a year. But our as you look at our FTE, actually compared to other districts across the North Shore, we will actually be at a higher FTE now overall than most other districts up and down the North Shore. And so we just need to
Because we
be
have so
cognizant of
few
that.
kids.
Exactly. So we just need to be cognizant of that, and to remind our parents and families that we are supporting our students to the nth degree, and then working with them to get them to the outside resources as well.
If you turn to the last page, Kevin, if you could review the final changes, because you
Yep.
do have Lori's on there as
Yep,
well.
exactly. So one last piece here that is actually not, it's sort of understated here, is that, so Lori Brown, who is our current technology curriculum specialist.
One more,
Two more, yep, who is our current technology curriculum specialist.
that one.
Is retiring at the end of this school year. And so what we are planning to do with her position is that we are going to be outsourcing her position to Single Path. And there are a lot of different things that Lori does. And so we have been planning actually for this for a long time, and hers has been a job that we have been sorting out for a long time. But one of the biggest things that Lori has been doing that we are really excited to bring to other people is really that teaching role and that classroom teaching role. As we looked up and down the North Shore and really to other surrounding districts, there's not a whole lot of actual classroom technology teaching that's going on in other districts right now. And most of the day-to-day classroom technology teaching that Lori is doing is actually provided by regular classroom teachers. And so that will now be supported by our library media specialists in the future. And so we're really comfortable outsourcing that piece to Single Path, along with splitting up some of her other job responsibilities to existing staff members and those sorts of things. So the overall total district license FTE decrease that we're forecasting for this next year is minus 1.3 FTE. And then you see the additional purchase services that we're forecasting this year. I sort of forgot about the physical therapist because it's billed at cost, and it's really an hourly rate just based on the number of students that we have there.
So they will be available on a day-to-day basis to handle?
They will be here
in-house?
full-time.
Oh, they'll
Yep,
be here
yep,
full-time,
they'll be
okay.
here full-time. It's a full-time staff member. So you'll see on the non-licensed staffing plan in just a second, we already
they're
have two technology specialists who are,
Tech support.
yeah, like tech support people who are here in the district that we've outsourced to Single Path. This is the next logical step to do that. And so it's like this in a number of small school districts. And so this is, as we evaluated our possibilities, it's like this, and really one of the things that we thought wisely to do.
I think Kevin and Jay have done a great job of easing into this. As a small district, the ability to work with Single Path, they do provide all the professional development for our technology people. You know, one of the things that keeps me up at night is some school districts have already been victims of this ransomware. And if we were trying to handle that on our own, I'd be terrified, whereas Single Path would have all their tech gurus out here and just the ability and the support they give us. But it also provides you guys as a board flexibility. If you ever wanted to hire a full-time person and have them be a staff member, you could. So it's been a good thing. So the overall for licensed staffing will be 1.3, and we'll be asking for you to approve that at the February 25th board meeting. Any other questions on that?
Okay?
Thank you, Kevin.
So in terms of non-licensed staffing, I sort of outlined that there. One of the things that Jay and I realized halfway through the year is that we actually didn't, we had already outsourced those two technology related positions. We have one at the elementary school, one at the middle school. And so the technology staffing plan from last year to this year, it really actually looks the same, but overall it looks like we're going down one. It is really the same, so.
One of our tech support people retired mid-year last year. So
Yeah.
when we presented the plan, we had 2 full-time people, but then by the end of the year, it was outsourced. So that's why it was never updated.
And I think when you look at the non-licensed staffing, it's important to note that this could always change for our teaching assistants. Our teaching assistants are oftentimes and many times required per student's IEPs. And so at any given time, they can go down or up for each year, and it's just based on student needs.
Yep.
And again, the technology piece down at the bottom will all be outsourced,
So we'll
so.
have 3 full-time technology staff from Single Path, the 2 tech support people who are on site, and then they're sort of level 1 technicians, and then a level 2 technician who would be more infrastructure, tech planning, handling databases and things like that, higher level stuff, managing those 2 with the help of Single Path's resources behind them.
So this is the non-licensed staffing plan that we will be bringing to you the February 25th board meeting for approval. Kevin and Jay have talked to you, kind of woven in and out the technology piece. You're going to hear a little bit more about that, most likely in April, when I start sharing some of our transition planning. Now that Kevin is not going to be here, he does more than anybody knows, and so Jay and I have kind of developed this, I call it my parking lot, but it's a Google Doc of all these items. Jay and I will look at each other and think, oh yeah, Kevin does that, we should put that there. And then we'll have to have that farmed out to either Single Path. We've hired a great administrative assistant for Kevin who's been picking up things. Laurie will be more than available to come in and help next year, retired after August 1st. We cannot have any pre-employment discussions with her per pension laws, but know that she's available. So we'll be bringing that to you February 25th. Any questions on those 3 items?
We'll be bringing the contracts for the Single Path outsourced people before June for the next year to approve.
Thanks to both of you. Jay, you can take a quick break while I do the calendar, and then you're up again. Next on the agenda, I believe, is the 2021 calendar. Just for your information, especially to Ann and Andy, we do our best to align beginning of school, end of school, and breaks with the high school. There is no perfect case with that. This year, it's been a little bit different because Lake Forest High School has a new teacher contract, and they have more days off apparently and some different days. So we had to wait until Shayla came over and went through their calendar with me only a couple weeks ago. Then the way it works in our district is Shelley and I sit down, we look at their calendar, we propose a calendar, we bring it to our calendar committee, which is comprised of a teacher rep from each of our buildings and our union president and our administrators. We talk about it, we make some suggestions to it. They go back and get feedback in their buildings. We talk about it one more time, I bring it here, and we always approve in February. And this year in particular, we've had a lot of parents calling saying, where's your calendar? And we're on the exact same calendar that we've been on every single year. So I want to point out a couple things here, though. We're starting school August 18th and 19th. The 20th would be an early release day. Our early release days are about an hour early.
Just a question, because I was asked this publicly, are we starting any earlier this year than we are in previous years?
No, we're starting pretty much the same that we always do every year here.
Well, and the first day for students would be that 20th.
The first day for students will be the 20th, and that will be an early release day. I want to point out in October and February, we're doing something differently. The teachers brought to us their concerns about not having enough late afternoon and evening slots for parent-teacher conferences. And so what we are doing next year, and I'm going to start with the October one, on the 28th of October, we're going to have a full day of school, and then the teachers will have conferences till like 7 or 7:30 that night. On the 29th, it will be literally a half day, not an early release. So the kids will get out like 11, and the teachers will have conferences all the rest of the day. And then that Friday the 30th, the school district will be closed, because everyone will have done their hours. Jay has built this 30th into 12-month calendars, so that we will be using a waiver day for that. So literally, the district will be closed that day. The same will apply to the February calendar for that. We have Thanksgiving break as usual. We have 2 weeks for Christmas. Our teachers come back with a teacher institute on the 4th.
Can I ask you a question? I'm sorry. What is a waiver day?
A waiver day is when we're in school on a national holiday. A great example is Veterans Day. It's a state holiday, but we're still in school. And so we work, and so we have to make up that day somewhere else.
Okay, got it.
The 4th, we come back as a Teacher Institute Day in January. I did have some parents at PTO talk to me. They felt that they didn't like that, and I shared that the teachers think that this has been really important. They come back, they get back in gear, they have their team meetings. It's been very, very good for them and for instruction, which is why we keep doing that. I've talked about conferences in February. One thing we copied from Lake Forest, and they may wind up changing it, we like it, is on March 19th, which is not Good Friday, because we're not taking religious days, we are going to start having the Friday before spring break, because it's our worst attendance day of the whole year, and then the following week. Right now,
Your new worst attendance day is now the 18th, you know.
it may or may not, because if the high school's following the same calendar,
Yeah.
we'll have to see. But they actually may be back in school on that. One of the things that we play with, when you look at the end of the school year, right now, we're ending on a Wednesday. You never want to end on a Friday, because if you end on a Friday, and then you have even one snow day to come back that next week, everybody's complaining. So, and we really had to balance out, we don't want to end on the Tuesday after Memorial Day, because that wouldn't be a good thing either, which is why March 19th really works for us, having that day off. So if you look at the end of the school year, the last day would be June 2nd. It would be an early release at 2 o'clock, and our snow days then would be 3rd, 4th, 7th, 8th, and 9th. We no longer do embedded days. Let me make sure I hit all my, yep, I hit all my notes.
So if there's no snow days, school ends on the 2nd.
No snow days, school will end on the 2nd. Any questions on that schedule? So I'll be bringing that for your approval. Then, school code requires us to do a framework for the 21-22 school year. We literally take the calendar from 2021 and put it on a new school year. Now, I do want to share something with all of you as board members. Some districts, not very many anymore, post this draft framework on their website. And we used to post it. And then what wound up happening, because we align with the high school, is we'd be making drastic changes, like even changing the week we start school or breaks, and people will have scheduled their vacations around it, and then everybody would be unhappy with us, even when we marked it draft framework. So we do not post this on our website. Some districts do, but there's no point in posting it because literally it changes enough that it's not worth posting on our website. But we still have to have board approval on it. Okay, so that's that.
How late are we delayed this year in getting these calendars out because of the Lake Forest situation?
We're not late at all. We always do February.
Oh, I thought you said you were,
It was, we usually get our work done way ahead of time. And everybody's asking us, and we didn't even know what the Lake Forest High School schedule's been. Sheila's really good with working with us on that, but she was working, they now have a calendar committee. And so she had to wait until her calendar committee met several times. In alignment with the calendar, we always do the board meeting calendar. So I have that. I've shared it with Lisa. Shelley and I did it around the 2 conferences that we thought Lisa might attend, so that makes it a little bit easier for her. Anybody have questions on that one?
by the way, Lisa's going to an IASA conference over the summer for new superintendents, which is supposed to be really good, so.
I went to it, it was great. All right, any questions on those? So those are the calendar, which we always do in February. I think we did it January one year.
So it's
just 'cause
consistent
we're
with
on
the way
top
we've
of
done it over the past several years, right?
Absolutely. I'm gonna move on to custodial services. We have been using our new company now for not quite a year, and Jay's gonna get you started on the last 2 or 3 agenda items, which are relatively simple.
Yeah, I just brought this up in case you need it. So last spring, we went out to bid for new night custodial services. This is our first year that we've had them, and we're very happy with their service. It's been towards the last year or so of our old contractor, we started to see service decline. They were having a hard time staffing us, and with this new team, they're fully staffed. They've really stepped up the cleaning, and even over winter break, Steve gave them a list of stuff that doesn't ever get cleaned on a routine basis, and they went and did a deep clean over break when no one was here. And so the staff and everyone has commented on the cleanliness of the buildings, and so we'd like to renew this contract for next year. The way the contract was written, it's a 1-year contract with 4 one-year renewals at the option of the board. And the increase is already built into the contract. It's at CPI from December, not to exceed 3%. So the increase would be 2.3%, which was the CPI in December. And I talked to them already. They were thrilled to retain the business and are looking forward to another year, and have already signed this contract that's attached here. So we would just ask for your approval of it at the end of the month.
February 25th. Any questions?
This is a question I should have asked ahead of time, but I did not think of it until just this second. Related to custodial contracts, didn't last year we purchase some big floor cleaning machine? Was that for
When
this
we-
group?
when-
For this?
Yes, so actually, we had 2 from the old company that they purchased, and we were paying for with our lease or with our annual payments. And because they were so old, they didn't want them, so we still have those 2, and we bought 1 additional cleaner.
Okay.
And really, the way with our new LVT floors that look like wood, it's nice in the summer because we don't have to strip them and wax them, so it saves a ton of labor.
Yeah.
But during the year, we need those machines to keep them up and get the salt off in the winter, and we run them during the day. So we have one new machine and then 2 older machines that we already owned. And we did have to buy some floor cleaning, a couple other pieces of equipment, but it was a lot less expensive than I expected, and it was better for us to own it than it was to put it
It's
in
all
here and
the way
pay
up
it
the
over
way
the
you want.
time. Yeah, because now it's ours.
Questions on that one? February 25th, next one, collection service.
So, many districts use a collection agency to collect unpaid debt. We are small, we don't have a lot of unpaid debt, but it's been it's been increasing lately, and it's been taking more time to collect. And I think having a collection agency is nice because you can send out reminders, but then for a lot of people, they get a lot of mail and they don't necessarily pay attention. But if you say, well, then, the next step is collections agency, usually you get pretty good response from people. So the hope would be not to have to send out to collections, but we do have about $25,000 in outstanding debt currently on, say, 40 accounts at this point in the year. That's all of the fees that's not lunch debt at all. It's only fees from the beginning of the school year.
And that's a 1 year?
That's just 1 year.
Current debt.
It may be accumulation for the last couple of years because we haven't necessarily been
You
as
carry a
diligent in
reserve for bad-
collecting.
You have a reserve for bad debts on the books?
No. We booked the revenue when it comes in, and, there's such a small portion that we don't collect that we don't reserve for it. And we don't, we only book it when we collect it, so.
And this is exclusive of the stuff that is waived for free and reduced kind of.
Correct. If somebody needs financial assistance, they have a couple of options. One is to apply for a fee waiver, and if they qualify under the federal guidelines, we waive all fees. Another is we offer payment plans, so many people can't pay their fees all at once, and Pushcoin, which is our system, is really nice because we can set up an automatic credit card or bank draft payment over however long is needed, and people can pay weekly or monthly at an amount that they can afford until their debts are paid off.
I'm curious about are these a handful of chronic bad debt people, or is it across the board, we have a general bad debt issue?
I'd say it's just a handful, which why which leads to my recommendation for the service. So there's 2 different models. One is a trans-world model, which is a subscription basis, basically, where you pay them upfront for 100 accounts, and it's a flat rate per account. And then they just go and they try to collect based on those. And then the other one is more of a commission-based model where, if I've got 10 accounts that are really worth collecting, then I can just give them those 10 accounts, and I don't pay anything until they collect, and when I do, they take a percentage of it. So it's not an upfront cost, and it anticipates a fairly low volume. I've spoken to many other districts, and these 2 came highly recommended, not only for being good at their job or efficient in collecting, but for being, benevolent, or like being nice about it. Like they're not out to collect the fee. They want to help you. They reach out. They're very respectful when they're collecting, and they try to work with people. And if the person says, "Oh, well, I already paid that," or there's an issue, they'll come and talk to the district. So it's not a heavy-handed approach. They start out very soft, and then only if they don't get success will get firmer over time. So I would like to have a collection agency available, so that if we do need to send something out to collections, that I can, and that also that there's that sort of threat of being sent to collections before we even get to that point. But typically, we would send, people currently get email invoices twice a month, and then if we still don't get collections, like at this time of year, we'll send out paper mail statements. And then after, say, 2 of those, if we don't get any results, then we would say, we would send one certified and say, this is kind of final attempt, after this, we'll send it out to collections, and then only at that point would we send it out for
And
collection.
there's a 30-day termination clause in the agreement?
Actually, our attorney is currently reviewing it, but I believe so, and we're not required to use them, it's on an as-needed basis, so the board needs to approve the use of one, but we can send this company as many as we want, or none,
Okay.
and they will only collect on what we ask them to.
But anytime we bring a contract to the board before you approve it, it's always reviewed by the attorney,
But it's
so.
fairly soft, and it's more of a document that spells out what the responsibilities are for both parties in the event of a collection, but it doesn't obligate us to use them or
Just
to.
out of curiosity, what percentage does the $25,000 represent out of the total? Roughly.
Well, so I mean, it's 40 accounts out of probably 800, probably 700 families. I don't know if we have 900 kids, 600 to 700 families. Dollar-wise, 55,000 in preschool. I don't know, 180,000 and 90. It's $300,000 maybe.
10%? That's a pretty high number, yeah, okay.
I just have more of a comment than a question, because one of the things that struck me that concerned me, and I guess some people might criticize my concern or compassion, but I'm glad you said that they were the benevolent, compassionate collection company, because I just, culturally, Lake Bluff is hopefully, I think we should strive to be a kinder, gentler town, and collections agencies just have a terrible reputation.
Right,
of
and
being
that's,
hard
I
asses,
would
and
not have
I don't think we
suggested
need
using
that
one
for
that
our
was,
families.
I think too, the fact that school districts, we still have to be compassionate, these are our kids,
Yeah.
so.
Yep.
I think that's really
On
important.
the other hand, you need to hold every family accountable to the same standard.
It's true too.
And, it's an obligation or responsibility.
we do offer to work with people, so we're certainly not,
So Jay will be bringing that, after our attorney review, it will come to you February 25th. So the final one, Olson Transportation.
Also, Jay.
So Olson is our transportation provider. We've been using them for quite a few years. They have given us a 6% renewal, which is actually for transportation services in this market fairly, I think it's a good renewal. We've had actually very good service from them this year. We had some issues last year. This year has been very quiet. We've had very few issues and have been pretty happy with the service. I've gotten data from other districts, and most districts are receiving renewals in the mid-single digits. The ones that are lower than that are kind of on new contracts where they took a big increase with the start of the contract, and now they're taking smaller increases. We were 5% 2 years ago, 7% last year, and 6% this year. Olson's just like we're having a hard time finding substitute teachers, they're having a really hard time finding drivers, and they've had to increase their pay significantly by over 20% and increase their benefit packages. So I think the bidding environment is not in the school district's favor currently, and many districts who do go out to bid end up not getting bids beyond their current provider and end up paying double-digit
More money.
increases to their existing transportation provider. So bidding is risky. We've had good service with Olson this year. We still do share routes with Lake Forest High School, not as many as we used to, but it does save us 10% on our route costs. So if we did go on a standalone basis, our cost increase would be 10% more even at our current rates. So I'm recommending that we continue with Olson for another year and go with their renewal.
Did you want to talk about the propane option, or are we going to leave that?
So some of the districts have asked for a propane option for buses because it's cleaner, burning, and better for the environment. I recommended going with it in this, in my memo. I did not read the contract correctly, or I think it was ambiguous, and I underestimated the cost. It's significantly more expensive than I expected. Deerfield School District actually brought it up, and their board recommended holding off until it becomes more cost-effective. And I think Olson, I don't know that they, I'm not sure how they came up with their pricing, but I don't think it was the most, I don't think they had a lot of thought in how they priced it. I think many districts are replacing their whole fleets who own buses because the total cost of ownership is less. The buses are easier to maintain, the fuel is cheaper. So there's fleet cost advantages that Olson would be reaping the benefits of and not passing along to us. They basically just said, well, our capital cost will be the price of the tank and the price of a new bus, which is more expensive, so we're gonna just charge you for it. And so it was about $25,000 for 1 year for one bus of an increase.
So I would suggest then, unless any of you have vehement reasons on why we should try propane this year, we do like Deerfield and hold off for a year.
So I think it's a good technology, and I think things are moving more away from diesel and towards electricity and propane and cleaner fuels. Olson is not on the cutting edge, and I'm not sure that we want to be the first to test the waters with them. But, you know, if other districts jump on board and the costs are lower, I think it might make sense to pilot it.
I think Lake Bluff is traditionally very environmentally aware and conscious, but I think there's too many unknowns, and it's pretty costly right now, so let's let them get it together for a year and then bring it back again next year.
Okay. Yep.
Unless there's any opposition to that.
No, it makes sense. I'm glad you're inquiring about it and keeping an eye on it. I think that's nice to do. I hear concern from people from time to time about kind of the
Idling,
fumes and
right.
that kind of stuff. And I suppose we probably don't really know entirely how much of an effect that has. It's a good thing we keep track of it and keep an eye on it, so.
Right, so just
Yeah.
for comparison, our entire, we pay our fuel separately, so our entire diesel bill for the whole year is $35,000, and so we'd be paying an additional $25,000 just for this one bus. And so it would be a significant cost increase, and I think it would only be one bus, so it wouldn't really make a dent in some of the issues that we've been seeing with the diesel either. So if we could get more buses at a lower cost, I think it makes more sense.
And the contract is vetted by our attorneys as usual?
So the contract that's there, I'll have a different one attached next time that won't have the propane option
Propane.
on it, but otherwise it will be the same. And this is sort of an addendum to an existing contract. It just spells out the prices for the next year.
So the answer is yes.
So, yes.
Thanks, Jay.
Any other questions? Any other comments or things the board needs to discuss?
So at the next meeting, you're gonna see all of this for approval, and Kevin will have his student achievement presentation that we put off a few times. So you already know the next meeting, and we'll have an assistant principal contract approval.
Okay.
So you already know what's on. That's the agenda.
All right.
No, we're really excited about it.
John,
Okay, John?
I know John speaks for all of us.
So if there's no public comment, anybody? If there's no public comment, may I have a motion to adjourn at 8:21?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
I was thinking about doing a third presentation.